The awakening Ethan Cole woke up slowly, his mind still foggy from sleep. He expected to feel the soft blanket over him, maybe the faint hum of the space station in the background. But instead, he felt weight on his chest, not just weight warmth. Soft and steady, pressing against him, his eyes opened and his breath caught. An alien woman was lying across him, her long silver hair spilled over his shoulder, shimmering faintly in the dim light of his cabin. Her skin had a pale moonlit glow, and her large silver eyes were open. Watching him without blinking, she wore a neat, black and white maid's outfit, though the style was clearly alien sleeves embroidered with strange symbols. Skirt cut in sharp, layered patterns. Ethan froze, unsure if he was dreaming. "Ah, what are you doing?" he asked in a low, careful voice. The alien's lips curved into a small smile. "This is a morning custom from my planet," she replied softly, her voice smooth and calm. Ethan blinked, still confused. "Custom? You mean lying on me?" "Yes," she said simply, as if it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Her name was Lyra, signed to him only yesterday as part of the interspecies cultural exchange program. He had met her in the docking bay, where she had bowed politely and introduced herself as his domestic aide. He had assumed that meant she would help keep the cabin clean, manage his meals, and maybe teach him a bit about her culture. Now, he wasn't so sure. Ethan tried to move, but Lyra didn't shift away. Her hands rested lightly on his shoulders, her gaze steady. "This means I accept you as someone I will protect," she said. "In my culture, this gesture is a bond." Ethan frowned. He wasn't against cultural differences, but waking up to find an alien maid lying on him was definitely not in the program's welcome manual. Outside the cabin, a faint sound echoed metal on metal. Ethan's head turned toward the noise. The space station was usually quiet at this hour. Just the hum of life support systems and the occasional distant clang from maintenance work. But this sound was heavier, sharper, as if something or someone was moving with purpose. Lyra's smile faded, her silver eyes narrowing. "Don't get up yet," she whispered suddenly. "They're listening." Ethan's pulse quickened. "They? Who's they?" he whispered back. Lyra didn't answer, instead tilting her head slightly, as if tracking the sound through the walls. The weight of the situation began to settle over Ethan. He was alone in deep space, assigned to live on this alien-run station as one of the first human residents. And now, less than 24 hours after meeting his assigned aide, she was lying on him, warning him about unknown listeners outside. He shifted slightly, but her hand pressed against his chest. "Stay still," she said, her voice firm this time. The noise outside grew louder, slow, deliberate scrape along the metal corridor. Ethan imagined tall alien figures with weapons, moving toward his door. His mind raced. Was this about him being human? He knew some factions on the station weren't happy about humans being allowed here. Could they be coming for him? Lyra leaned in closer, her hair brushing his cheek. "If they think you are alone, they might act," she whispered. "But if they see me here, they will think twice." Ethan didn't understand how lying on him could protect him, but the seriousness in her tone made him stay still. The scraping sound stopped. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the faint hum of the station's systems. Then came a dull metallic thud right against his door. Ethan's heart skipped. Someone was definitely out there. Lyra's eyes flicked toward the door, then back to him. Her voice was barely audible now. "If they come in, you'll have to trust me completely." Ethan wanted to ask more, but before he could, a faint hiss came from the door panel. Someone was tampering with the lock. Lyra shifted slightly, her body tensing. For the first time, Ethan noticed her right hand was closed into a fist. Something small and metallic glinted between her fingers. "What's that?" he whispered. "Protection," she replied without looking at him. The lock clicked loudly, making both of them freeze. Light from the corridor began to spill in as the door slowly opened. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to get up. But Lyra pressed him down firmly. Her voice was calm, almost steady. "Not yet," she murmured. The door opened halfway, and a shadow stretched across the floor. A tall figure stepped inside, its outline sharp and alien against the light. It paused, looking at the bed. Ethan held his breath, feeling Lyra's steady weight keeping him still. The intruder's eyes seemed to linger on them for a moment. Then, without a word, it stepped back, and the door slid shut again. Ethan exhaled slowly. What just happened? He asked. Lyra finally sat up, brushing her hair back. "We have little time," she said, her voice low but urgent. "They will try again, and next time, they won't just look." Ethan stared at her. "Lyra, what's going on?" She looked straight at him, her expression unreadable. "I told you," she said quietly. "This is a custom. But it's also a warning." Outside, the metal scraping began again, slower this time. Ethan realized sleep was the last thing on his mind. Now, whatever was happening, it was just beginning. The sound outside Ethan's door didn't fade. It lingered, slow and careful, like someone dragging metal fingers along the corridor wall. Lyra stood up from the bed, her bare feet making no sound on the floor. She moved toward the small control panel by the door, but didn't touch it. Instead, she placed her ear near the wall. Listening, Ethan sat up, rubbing his eyes. "I don't get it," he whispered. "Why would anyone be out there this early? And why would they be listening?" Lyra turned to him with a serious expression. "There are factions on this station who don't want humans here," she said quietly. "They believe your presence is a threat, that your kind will change." The balance of power. Ethan frowned. "That doesn't explain the scraping," he said. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "It's a signal," she replied. "They are marking your location." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. "How do you know all this?" She hesitated before answering. "My people. We hear things others don't," she said, tapping her ear gently. "And I was assigned to you for more than just cleaning and cooking." Ethan studied her face. The calm Maid from yesterday was gone. This Lyra was alert, tense, ready for danger. Outside, the noise stopped again. The silence felt heavier this time. Ethan got off the bed and moved toward the small window in the cabin wall. Through the narrow slit, he saw two shadows in the hallway, tall, broad-shouldered, standing too still to be ordinary crew members. He recognized the armor plates on their shoulders from the station's security team. But the markings were wrong. These were not official patrols. Lyra noticed him looking. "Don't stare too long," she warned. "They can sense when they're being watched." Ethan stepped back, his mind racing. "Then what do we do?" "Just wait here until they decide to come in." Lyra's lips tightened. "No," she said firmly. "We prepare." She reached into the folds of her maid uniform and pulled out the small metallic object he had seen earlier. It unfolded in her hand into a slender, curved blade with a faint blue glow along the edge. Ethan's eyes widened. "You've been carrying that around? In my room?" "Yes," she said simply. "It is my duty to keep you alive." Before he could reply, a faint tapping came from the wall opposite the door. Lyra froze, then moved to the corner of the cabin, placing her hand on the wall's surface. Her eyes closed for a moment. "They are trying to open another way in," she murmured. Ethan's jaw tightened. "How many are there?" She opened her eyes and looked straight at him. "At least 4, she said, "2 outside the door, 2 near the ventilation shaft." Ethan's thoughts spun. He was just a mechanic, not a fighter. If they broke in from both sides, they wouldn't stand a chance. "Why are they after me specifically?" he asked. Lyra hesitated again. "Because you are unclaimed," she said. In their eyes, you are vulnerable. Without allies, easy to take. Ethan frowned. Unclaimed. What does that even then? He remembered her words from earlier, about her custom of lying on him. You're saying that thing you did this morning makes me claim. She gave a single nod. Yes. And now they will think twice before acting openly. The tapping stopped suddenly, replaced by a low metallic hum. Lyra's eyes widened. There. Trying to cut through, she said. Ethan's heart began to pound harder. What do we do? She walked over to him, her voice low and urgent. If they break in, you'll have to follow my instructions without hesitation. And if I don't? Ethan asked, her silver eyes locked with his. Then you won't survive the next 5 minutes. Ethan swallowed hard. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the cabin floor. Suddenly, there was a sharp clang, then silence. Lyra tilted her head. Listening, they've stopped. For now, she said. Ethan exhaled, but it felt too early to relax. She walked to the small storage compartment near the bed and pulled out a folded cloth. Inside, it was a thin, air-flexible device with glowing patterns along its surface. She handed it to Ethan. Wear this under your shirt, she instructed. It will shield your body from most scanning equipment. Ethan took it reluctantly. I feel like I just woke up into some spy movie, he muttered. Lyra's lips twitched, but she didn't smile. The corridor outside creaked softly. Someone was moving again. Lyra glanced toward the door and lowered her voice. They're testing us, she said. They want to see if we panic. Ethan leaned closer. Do you panic? Never, she replied. Her calmness made him wonder just how much danger she'd faced before. The shadows outside moved again, slower this time. Ethan thought he saw one of them raise a small device to the door. Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between him and the entrance. Her hand tightened on the glowing blade. If they come in, she whispered, I'll handle the first tour. Your job is to stay out of the way until I tell you otherwise. Ethan opened his mouth to protest. But then the door's lock made a faint clicking sound. Lyra's body tensed, her eyes narrowing like a predator's. The air in the cabin seemed heavier. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. A strip of light appeared at the edge of the door as it began to slide open. Cliffhanger, 2 tall, armored figures stepped into view. Their faces hidden behind dark visors. They stopped when they saw Lyra standing there, blade in hand. One of them spoke in a deep, metallic voice Ethan couldn't understand. Lyra answered in the same alien tongue, her tone sharp, almost dangerous. Ethan didn't know what was being said, but he knew one thing: whatever was about to happen next, it wouldn't be peaceful. The 2 armored figures stood just inside the doorway. They didn't rush forward, didn't attack. Instead, they remained still, their dark visors hiding their eyes. Ethan could feel the tension in the air. Lyra's stance was calm but ready, her glowing blade steady in her hand. One of the intruders spoke again in their alien language, the deep metallic voice echoing in the small cabin. Lyra replied sharply, her tone leaving no doubt she was challenging them. The other figure stepped closer, tilting its head at Ethan. Ethan instinctively took a step back, his heart pounding. Lyra raised a hand slightly, a silent signal for him to stay still. There was a pause, then, with a slow, deliberate movement, the 2 intruders stepped backward into the corridor. The door slid shut with a faint hiss. Ethan exhaled, realizing he had been holding his breath the entire time. He looked at Lyra. What did you say to them? I told them you are claimed, she answered without looking at him. Her voice was quiet, but carried a weight that made him pay attention. They know the law of my people. They will not act openly while the bond stands. Ethan frowned. This custom you keep talking about. I think it's time you tell me exactly what it means. Lyra placed the blade on the table. She walked to the small water dispenser, filled a cup, and took a sip before speaking. In my culture, she began, there is an ancient tradition. called the Veil of Vow. It began in times of war, when clans needed to protect those too important to lose. To bind someone under this vow, one must rest upon them during their sleep and remain until they wake. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That's oddly specific, he said. Lyra's eyes flickered with a faint smile. It is more than physical contact, she explained. It is a silent claim, a promise to shield them with one's own life. When the vow is made, the fates of both are tied together. If one dies, the other is bound to follow. Ethan stared at her, trying to decide if she was serious. So when you did that this morning, you basically signed us both up for some kind of life or death contract. Yes, she said simply. I did it because I overheard them plotting to take you. Her gaze hardened. I could not allow it. He ran a hand through his hair. This is insane. I'm just a mechanic. I fix ships. I'm not. You are human, she interrupted, her tone sharp. And here. That alone makes you valuable, or dangerous. Ethan's chest tightened. Valuable how? She looked at him for a long moment before answering. There are rumors, she said, that humans can survive in environments others cannot, that your bodies adapt faster, that your instincts are different. Some would use that, twist it, for their own gain. Ethan felt a knot in his stomach, and others just want me gone. She nodded slowly. Yes, the cabin was quiet except for the low hum of the station systems. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. So now we're bound, he said. What does that change? Lyra moved closer. Her voice calm but firm. It means I am responsible for your safety, no matter what. It also means that if you reject the bond, both of us become fair game for anyone who wishes us harm. Ethan looked up at her. That sounds like a really convenient way to keep me under your watch. Her expression didn't change. Perhaps, she said, but it also means I will stand between you and death, even if it costs me my life. Ethan swallowed hard, unsure how to respond to that. Before he could speak, the sound returned, soft tapping from the ventilation shaft. Lyra's head turned sharply toward it. They're still here, she said quietly. They're testing how far they can go without breaking the station's rules. Ethan moved toward the small table and picked up the blade. It felt surprisingly light in his hand. Lyra stepped forward and took it back gently. Not yet, she said. You'll know when to use it. The tapping stopped again, replaced by faint footsteps in the corridor. Lyra walked to the door and pressed her ear against it. They've called for backup, she murmured. Ethan's pulse quickened. How do you know? She tapped her ear again. I can hear the cum signals in their helmets. Ethan shook his head. This is madness. I came here to help repair docking systems, not get caught in some political mess. Lyra's gaze softened for the first time that morning. I know, she said, but you are here now, and they will not stop. She reached into her uniform again and pulled out a small, black disc. She pressed it to the wall, and a faint holographic display appeared showing a map of the station's corridors. Red dots glowed near their location, slowly moving closer. They're closing in, Ethan said. Lyra nodded. We have minutes, maybe less. He looked at her. So what's the plan? She turned to him, her silver eyes steady. The plan is simple. Stay with me, follow my lead, and remember that the bond means your life is mine to protect. Ethan managed a small, nervous smile. And if I don't follow your lead? Her expression turned cold. Then neither of us will see the next sunrise. Outside, the scraping sound returned. Louder this time, Lyra picked up her blade, her posture shifting into a fighting stance. Ethan felt his breath catch as the doors lock gave a sharp click. The lights in the cabin flickered. And for the second time that day, danger was about to step through his door. The door slid open with a slow mechanical hiss. Cold corridor lights spilled into the cabin, casting long shadows across the floor. Two tall, armored figures stepped inside, their black visors hiding their faces, the faint hum of their breathing. Systems filled the silence. Ethan instinctively stepped back until his legs touched the bed. Lyra stood between him and the intruders, her glowing blade raised. She spoke in her native language, her tone sharp and commanding. The intruders didn't stop moving forward. One of them let out a low, mocking laugh. The sound distorted through the helmet. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. It wasn't friendly. The closer one reached out, gripping Lyra's wrist. Ethan's stomach tightened, but in one swift motion, Lyra twisted her arm. Forcing the intruder's body forward, she shifted her weight and flipped him over her shoulder. The armored figure crashed onto the floor with a heavy thud. The metal echoing in the small cabin. The second intruder reacted instantly, pulling a short-barreled energy weapon from his side. Ethan's breath caught. Before he could shout a warning, Lyra darted forward with inhuman speed. Her blade flashed once, striking the weapon's barrel and slicing it in half. A shower of sparks lit the air, followed by the sharp scent of burned metal. The first intruder groaned, trying to rise. Lyra kicked him square in the chest, sending him sliding into the wall. Ethan's hands clenched at his sides, adrenaline rushing through him. He wanted to help, but he knew he'd only get in the way. Lyra moved like she had fought battles all her life, each motion sharp and precise. The second intruder stumbled back, weapon useless. He reached for something on his belt, but Lyra was already there. She slammed the hilt of her blade into his helmet, the impact ringing like a bell. The intruder staggered, then dropped to one knee. Ethan's heart pounded. He had never seen anyone move like that. Lyra turned her head slightly toward him. "Under the bed now," she ordered. Ethan hesitated. "I can." "No," she cut him off. "Do as I say," reluctantly. He dropped to the floor and slid under the bed. From there, he could see the fight continue. Shadows of movement, flashes of blue light, the sound of heavy blows landing. One of the intruders lunged at Lyra, but she sidestepped smoothly, slashing his thigh armor. The man cried out, collapsing against the wall. The other tried to rush her from behind, but Lyra spun and drove the flat of her blade into his ribs. Ethan gritted his teeth, wishing he had a weapon of his own. He reached for the small storage bin under the bed and found a metal pipe. It wasn't much, but it felt solid in his hands. He waited for the right moment. The chance came faster than he expected. One of the intruders dropped to one knee, his back to Ethan. Without thinking, Ethan rolled out from under the bed and swung the pipe hard into the back of the man's leg. The intruder grunted, stumbling forward. Lyra didn't waste the opening. Her blade pressed against the man's throat guard, forcing him still. The second intruder froze, his breathing ragged inside the helmet. "Leave," Lyra said coldly. In their language, her tone carried no room for argument. The intruders hesitated, then slowly backed toward the door. One of them grabbed his wounded partner by the arm, dragging him into the corridor. The door slid shut again, sealing the cabin. In silence, Ethan dropped the pipe, his breathing fast and uneven. What the hell was that? He demanded. Lyra turned to him, her expression calm despite the fight. "That," she said, "was a warning. They wanted to see how far they could go before I stopped them." Ethan shook his head. "That didn't look like a warning. Lyrit looked like they were here to take me." She didn't deny it. "They were," she admitted. "And they will try again." Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his face. "This is insane. Why me?" Lyra crouched in front of him, her eyes meeting his. "Because you are unclaimed to them, a prize they think they can take without consequence." She reached out and placed a hand over his. "But now, you are mine to protect." Her words were strange, but the weight in her voice was real. Ethan couldn't decide if he felt safer or more trapped. "What happens if they send more?" he asked. Lyra stood, her gaze sharp. Then we won't be here when they arrive. She crossed the room and pulled a small lever under the bed. A hidden panel on the floor slid open, revealing a narrow, dark passage. Ethan blinked. There's a crawl space under the cabin. Lyra nodded. It connects to the maintenance sector. Few people know about it. Ethan glanced at the door. They'll be back soon, he said. Lyra extended a hand to him. Then we leave now, she said firmly. Ethan took her hand. Stepping toward the dark opening, something about her grip felt steady, grounding him even as fear knotted in his stomach. They climbed down into the crawl space, the panel sliding shut above them. The air was cooler here, filled with a faint hum of hidden machinery. Lyra led the way, moving silently on all fours. Ethan followed, the narrow space making him feel trapped. He could still hear faint footsteps above. The intruders were back, but this time they wouldn't find him where they expected. The crawl space was narrow and cold. Metal walls pressed close on both sides, and the air smelled faintly of oil and dust. Ethan crawled after Lyra, his knees scraping against the metal floor. The hum of machinery vibrated through the passage, making it feel alive above them. Faint thuds echoed the sound of boots moving through his cabin. Lyra glanced over her shoulder, her silver eyes glinting in the dim light. "Keep moving," she whispered. "They'll search every corner up." "There." "But they won't find this path." Ethan nodded, though his breath was coming faster from the cramped space. The thought of armored intruders just above them made his skin crawl. The passage twisted sharply to the left. A faint glow came from ahead, casting long shadows over the walls. Lyra stopped and pressed her hand against a panel. The light flickered, and a soft click sounded as a section of the wall slid open. Beyond it was a steep ladder leading down maintenance sector. She said quietly. Ethan peered down. It was dark, with only the occasional flicker of red warning lights. "What's down there?" he asked. "Everything that keeps this station alive," Lyra replied, "and plenty of places to hide." They descended quickly, the metal ladder cold under their hands. The deeper they went, the louder the hum of engines and pumps became. At the bottom, they stepped onto a narrow walkway above a vast chamber filled with pipes. Vents and tangled wiring, steam hissed from valves, and the air was thick with heat. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. Looking around, Lyra led him across the walkway, her steps silent and deliberate. Ethan followed, glancing over the edge at the endless maze of machinery below. It felt like being inside the heart of some massive beast. Somewhere far above, a faint metallic clang echoed. "They're still looking," Ethan murmured. "Yes," Lyra said without stopping. "They won't give up quickly." She guided him to a small platform at the far end of the chamber. From there, she opened another panel, revealing a narrow storage compartment. "In here," she said, motioning for him to enter. Ethan crouched inside, finding it just big enough for the two of them to sit. Lyra sealed the panel from the inside, plunging them into near darkness. Only a faint strip of light from a ventilation slit illuminated her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The distant hum of machinery surrounded them like a heavy blanket. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Lyra, this whole thing, these people after me, it's because I'm human, isn't it?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, but it's also because of the bond now." Her voice was low, but there was no hesitation in it. "They know I won't let you go without a fight, and that makes them impatient." Ethan leaned back against the wall. "You make it sound like they'll keep coming until one of us is dead." Lyra's gaze didn't waver. "That is exactly what will happen," she said. "And that is why we must think ahead." Before Ethan could reply, a faint red dot of light appeared on his chest. His heart lurched. Lyra moved instantly. Shoving him sideways, the laser sight moved with him, tracing across the panel wall. She pulled a small device from her belt and slapped it against the wall. A sharp electric crack filled the air. The laser sight vanished. replaced by the sound of hurried footsteps above them. "They found us," Ethan whispered. Lyra shook her head. "No, they found this sector. They don't know our exact location." Yet Ethan's hands tightened into fists. "This is insane. I don't even know who these people are." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They are not one group. They are fragments of many factions, united only by their wish to see you removed from this station. Some for political reasons, others for profit." Ethan stared at her. "And you? Why risk yourself for me?" For a moment, her expression softened. "Because once I made the vow, I became responsible for you," she said quietly. "And because I believe you are worth protecting." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever spoken about him like that before. The sound of boots striking metal grew louder. Lyra reached for her blade again, the faint blue glow casting light over her face. "We can't stay here," she said. "They're closing in." She opened the panel again and stepped out, motioning for him to follow. They moved quickly along another narrow walkway. The heat and steam made it hard to breathe at the far end. They reached a vertical shaft with a maintenance lift. Lyra pressed a button, and the lift's small platform descended with a slow whir. Ethan stepped on, feeling the vibration through his boots. The lift rose, carrying them toward a dimly lit service corridor. From there, Lyra led him through winding passages. Every turn seemed designed to lose anyone following them. Finally, they reached a locked hatch marked Access Restricted. Lyra pulled a card from her belt and slid it through the reader. The hatch clicked open, revealing a dark, cramped space filled with spare parts and old equipment. "This will do for now," she said. Closing the hatch behind them, Ethan leaned against a crate, breathing hard. "Do you think we lost them?" he asked. Lyra's voice was calm, but her eyes stayed on the hatch. "For now," she said, "but they'll keep hunting." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "So what's next?" Lyra finally turned to look at him. "Next," she said. "Slowly, we decide if we run or if we fight." Ethan felt his chest tighten at her words. Either choice sounded dangerous, but deep down, he knew they couldn't keep running forever. The storage room was quiet, except for the low hum of the station's engines. Dust hung in the air, swirling slowly in the thin shaft of light coming from a cracked vent. Ethan leaned against a metal crate, his arms crossed, trying to think. Lyra stood near the hatch, her blade resting loosely in her hand. Her eyes never left the door. "They'll find us again," Ethan said finally, breaking the silence. "They always do," Lyra replied without turning her head. Ethan took a slow breath. "So, we can't just keep running." "No," she said, her tone calm but heavy. "If we run forever, they will hunt us forever." Ethan pushed away from the crate and stepped closer. "Then we need to decide, do we stand and fight, or try to disappear completely?" Lyra glanced at him, her silver eyes unreadable. "You say, we now?" she said quietly. "Before, you wanted no part of this." Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "Yeah, well, I guess I'm starting to understand what's at stake." She studied him for a moment. "There are risks, either way," she said. "If we fight, we will make enemies of powerful people. If we run, they will eventually catch us when we're weakest." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "It's like choosing between drowning and burning." Lyra didn't disagree. He walked toward the small vent, peering through it, beyond. He could see a dim maintenance corridor, empty for now. "We need to know exactly who's after us," Ethan said. "Not just shadows and armor." Lyra's jaw tightened. "I know some of them," she admitted, "but they are many factions. And their leaders are hidden." Ethan looked back at her. "Then maybe we force one of them to talk." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "That is dangerous," she said. "But it might work." Her voice had a faint edge now. It's as if she were considering it seriously. The sound of faint footsteps echoed from somewhere outside the hatch. Both of them froze. Lyra moved silently to the wall, pressing her ear to the metal. "They're searching the sector again," she whispered. Ethan's stomach nodded. "How close?" "Too close," she said. She sheathed her blade for a moment and crouched beside one of the crates. Inside were old maintenance tools, wrenches, cables, even a small welding torch. She tossed the torch to Ethan. "Can you use this?" He caught it, feeling the weight. "Yeah, but it's not much of a weapon. It doesn't need to be," she replied. "It just needs to surprise them." Ethan understood her meaning. "If we fight, we'll have to do it smart," he said. Lyra nodded. "We strike first, before they corner us." Her tone was firm now, no longer just cautious. The footsteps outside faded again. Lyra took a slow breath, then turned to Ethan. "I will not lie if we do this. You may not survive," she said. Ethan gave a small shrug. "If we don't do this, I definitely won't survive." For the first time that day, Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. She moved to the hatch, unlocking it slowly. The door slid open just a crack, enough for her to look through. The corridor beyond was empty for now. She motioned for Ethan to follow. They slipped out, their steps silent. The maintenance sector was a maze of pipes and steel walkways, dim. Red lights flickered overhead, casting everything in a dull glow. Ethan kept the torch ready in his hands. Lyra led the way with confident strides. She seemed to know exactly where she was going. After several turns, they reached a grated platform. Overlooking a lower level down below, two of the armored pursuers were speaking in hushed tones. Ethan's grip on the torch tightened. Lyra crouched low, listening intently. She whispered, "They're not here for you alone. They have orders to capture me too." Ethan blinked. "So this isn't just about me?" Lyra shook her head. "No, but you make an effective excuse for them to act." Her eyes narrowed. "They said something about taking us to the council." Ethan frowned. "And that's bad?" "Very," she replied. "The council doesn't take prisoners. They make examples." The weight of her words settled heavily in the air. Ethan looked down at the two figures. "Then maybe one of them talks before the council gets us." Lyra gave a slow nod. "We take one alive," she said. "But you must follow exactly what I say." They waited for the right moment. When one of the armored men stepped away to check a panel, Lyra leaped from the platform. Her blade flashed, once disarming the first before he could draw his weapon. Ethan dropped down after her, landing hard but keeping his balance. The second guard turned to Latethan, slammed the torch against his arm, sending a jolt of sparks. The fight was quick but fierce. Lyra moved with precision, forcing the first guard to the ground. Ethan wrestled the second's weapon away, tossing it aside. Within moments, both were on their knees. Lyra held her blade at the first guard's neck. "You will tell us who sent you," she said coldly. The guard stayed silent. Lyra pressed the blade closer. Ethan stepped in, his voice low but sharp. "Your friends won't be here in time talk." Now, finally, the guard spoke, his voice muffled by the helmet. The order came from the inner council. Ethan and Lyra exchanged a quick look. The words carried a weight neither of them liked. Before they could question him further, a loud alarm blared through the sector. "They've triggered a distress beacon," Lyra said quickly. "They know we're here." Ethan's heart pounded. "Then we need to move now." They left the guards bound to the railing and ran into the twisting corridors. The alarm echoed all around them. Red lights flashing in every direction. Lyra's voice was steady even as they ran. "The choice is made. We fight." Ethan didn't argue. He knew there was no going back now. The alarm kept screaming through the maintenance sector. Red warning lights flashed along the walls, making shadows jump and twist. Ethan ran behind Lyra. The sound of boots echoing from every direction. They could hear voices over the intercom orders. Being shouted in the alien language, the hunt was on. Lyra led him through a narrow service corridor. The heat from the pipes made the air thick and heavy. They burst out onto a wider platform that overlooked the central maintenance hub. Below them, a dozen armored figures were moving into position. Their black visors glinted in the flashing lights. "They've blocked every exit," Ethan said. Breathing hard, Lyra scanned the area quickly. "Then we make one," she replied, her voice steady. She reached for the small control panel on the wall, fingers moving quickly. The hum of machinery below grew louder. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. Lyra didn't look up, overloading. "The steam valves," she said. "They'll create enough cover for us to move." Ethan's eyes widened. "Cover or a blast big enough to fry us?" Lyra's lips curved slightly. "That depends on how fast we run." A loud hiss erupted from below. White clouds of steam poured into the hub. Hiding the guards from view, Lyra grabbed Ethan's wrist and pulled him down the metal stairs. They moved fast, the steam wrapping around them like a thick fog. Shapes moved in the mist shadows of armored figures, searching blindly. One of them stepped too close. Lyra's blade flashed once, striking with precision. The guard crumpled without a sound. Ethan stayed close, his torch ready. Every step forward felt like a gamble. Through the haze, they reached the far side of the hub. An emergency hatch waited there. Marked with alien script, Lyra started to open it, but a deep voice called out behind them. "Stop." Ethan turned to see a taller figure stepping through the steam. His armor was different, heavier, marked with golden lines. "The commander," Lyra whispered under her breath. The man removed his helmet, revealing sharp features and pale eyes. "You've caused enough trouble," he said, his voice like stone. "Come quietly, and I might let you live." Ethan glanced at Lyra. "Not much of a deal," he muttered. The commander raised a heavy energy rifle. Lyra stepped in front of Ethan without hesitation. "You'll have to go through me," she said coldly. The commander smiled faintly. That was the plan. He fired. The blue bolt of energy sizzled through the air. Lyra moved faster than Ethan's eyes could follow, deflecting the shot with her blade. The impact sent a burst of light across the room. The commander fired again, and again Lyra deflected it. Sparks showering the metal floor. Ethan knew they couldn't keep this up forever. He looked around desperately for something. Anything that could turn the fight. His gaze landed on a cluster of unstable power cells stacked near the wall. If they overloaded. He gripped the torch tighter. "Lyra," he shouted, pointing. She saw the cells and gave the smallest nod. "Get ready to run," she said. The commander took another step forward, aiming for Ethan this time. Lyra lunged, forcing him to block. Her strike, Ethan ran to the cells, flipping the torch to maximum heat. The metal casing began to glow red under the flame behind him. The clash of blade and rifle echoed in the steam-filled hub. Lyra moved like a blur. Keeping the commander's attention, "You can't win," the commander snarled. "We already have your location. Reinforcements are coming. Then they can join you," Lyra replied, her voice sharp. Ethan stepped back from the cells. The metal was close to breaking. "Lyra, now," he called. She kicked the commander backward and sprinted to Ethan. Grabbing his arm, they dove for the hatch just as a deafening blast shook the hub. The explosion filled the air with heat and light. A wave of steam and smoke swallowed the platform. Ethan felt the floor shudder under him as they scrambled through the hatch. The door sealed behind them, cutting off the roar of the blast. Only the distant echo of alarms followed. They found themselves in a dim cargo tunnel. Lyra slowed, checking that Ethan was unhurt. "You did well," she said simply. Ethan gave a breathless laugh. "I'm just trying to stay alive." They moved deeper into the tunnel. The walls here were old, covered in rust and peeling paint. It felt far from the polished corridors of the upper station. "Where does this lead?" Ethan asked. To the outer docks, Lyra replied, "We can take a pod and disappear?" Ethan's chest tightened. Disappear where? Lyra glanced at him. Anywhere the Council's reach is weaker. Ethan thought about it for a moment, then shook his head. They won't stop. Leering not until they know we're dead. She studied his face. Then we don't just run. She said slowly, we make them regret ever coming for us. Ethan's heart pounded at the way she said it. Not as a boast, but as a promise. They reached the end of the tunnel. A small hatch opened to reveal the black expanse of space beyond. The docks stretched below, filled with silent ships and empty crates. A single escape pod sat ready on the far side, its lights blinking softly. Lyra motioned toward it. "We leave now," she said. They crossed the dock quickly, but halfway there, a voice echoed through the space, amplified by the station's comms. "You can run, but you cannot hide." The deep voice said, "You belong to the Council now." Ethan froze. The voice wasn't just talking to them. It felt like it was everywhere. Inside his head, Lyra's grip on his arm tightened. "Keep moving," she said sharply. They reached the pod, the hatch sliding open with a hiss. Ethan climbed inside. Followed by Lyra, the controls lit up, and the pod began to detach from the dock. Through the small viewport, Ethan saw shadows moving on the dock. Armored figures stepping into the light, too many to count. The pod's engines roared to life. Pulling them away from the station, the figures watched without moving, their visors reflecting the stars. Ethan looked at Lyra. "Is it over?" She shook her head. "No, Ethan," she said quietly. "This is only the beginning." The pod drifted into the darkness of space. Behind them, the station's lights glowed like a distant, waiting predator.